Have you ever wondered what happens to the paperwork that you fill out when you're getting a gun? Is Big Brother there looking? Is there some super secret mega database? This is Alan with Quarter Horse Arms, and I'm going to try and answer some of those questions. Now, keep in mind I am an idealist. I've also had some direct experience with some of this stuff I'm going to talk about, and I've spoken to ATF agents. So, basic thing is generally no. You buy a gun and a 4473 is filled out, it stays with that gun dealer. They used to tell us we had to keep it for 20 years. Now they're just asking us to keep it until whenever. So when will they ever see those documents? Well, let's assume I live to a ripe old age and go out of business. Hopefully in that order. At that point, I will give all of my paperwork and books to the ATF. They will throw it in what amounts to be a banker's box with my license number on it. And then they throw it, and apparently they're short on space. So they have, these pod storage things. And then if a query comes in, and again, this is, after I'm out of business. When the query comes in, they send some worker out into those pods, probably in the middle of the summer, trying to go look for all of that, important paperwork. So if I run a NICS check on you, meaning you did not have a concealed carry permit, so I have to run a background check, your vital information gets entered. It doesn't actually identify whether or not you actually completed the purchase. It doesn't even ask for what you bought. It asks, is it a long gun, a handgun, or is it something else like a receiver? Not a big deal. And I'm one of the crazy dealers that ships to California. Even shipping to California, I have a California, was it Department of Justice or something? I have my own access number, that was provided by California. So when I go to ship stuff, I have to include a copy of my FFL, which is pretty standard. And I have to include a copy from the California database thingy. And California's simply asks, how many guns am I shipping? How many long guns? How many handguns? It doesn't ask any other question beyond which gun dealer is it going to? And how many? That's it. Okay, now, having said all that, when does the ATF actually know for sure what you're getting? Okay, for starters, if you're buying multiple handguns, and that means more than one handgun within a 5 business day period, the gun dealer has to fill out a multiple handgun purchase or multiple handgun sale document. And one copy goes to the ATF, and the other copy goes to the sheriff typically. And, my understanding is some sheriffs throw it away, some sheriffs look at it, then throw it away. Some might actually keep it. And then, I was sitting there and the ATF agents there, I was like, what the heck could you possibly want this information for? And, I kind of worded it like that. I was thinking in much more colorful language. But frankly, all I was saying was, why am I doing all this extra paperwork? I have lots of customers that are gun collectors, so it's not uncommon for a couple of these guys to get 5, 6, 7 pistols or revolvers in at once and just pick them all up at once, which means I get extra paperwork because then there's not enough room on the 4473 and I have to use an addendum form. All right, but to go back to the multiple handgun sale, if there is one, the information about the purchaser, meaning name, address, my information as the gun dealer, and which firearms went to this person. And again, I'm thinking, why am I bothering? And the agent explained they're looking for two things. They're looking for gun runners. So Florida was the example given to me, looking for people going up some major highway, buying a bunch of guns at one gun dealer, some guns at another gun dealer, and then shipping them all someplace. The other one that they were looking for are unlicensed gun dealers. So what they were looking for was somebody buying, and frankly, it's always the cheap-ass pistols, like the High Points, or, the cheesy Smith & Wesson, screwball series, like, was it the SW or SV series, that seemed to be involved. Now, it could just be because the prices at that point in time were cheap enough that anyone and their brother could get their hands on them. And so is it illegal for you to sell firearms? No, it's not. You can sell firearms. It's not a problem. It's when you start selling lots of them and you're conducting business as a gun dealer. And the agent explained that they were taking business away from me. And I'm like, I never really thought about it that way. So the other part is they're not paying taxes. And if there's something that's going to get government notice, it's not paying taxes. And in one case that I was made aware of, some guy had been buying lots of guns, transferring them all to the same dealer. Wasn't even smart enough to buy them from that dealer. And the multiple handgun sales triggered ATF intervention, who went looking for those guns. I have no idea what the resolution of that was, but in that particular circumstance, that's when they find out. And the final way is, and this has happened to me twice, was I got a call from the ATF, and, for the first time I was like, oh my God, I screwed up big time. I'm going to lose my license, and I'm thinking all this terrible stuff. And it turns out that they had received a trace request. So a gun that I had sold had been recovered, presumably in some sort of crime. And they're going, well, how the heck did they know I sold the gun? Because I have the paperwork. Well, the manufacturer registered all the firearms with the ATF, and they have a record of which serial numbers went to which gun distributor or wholesaler. And then they have a list, so when I bought that particular gun, it was transferred to me, and there was a paper trail. So all the ATF did was start at the manufacturer and go down the pipeline till they got to the last person, and in this case it was me. The second time it happened, I was much calmer, and I got to send them to the next person, because at that point I had sold the gun and the gun was sold to somebody but transferred to another state, and that gun dealer would take care of it. So in the meantime, I'm sitting there starting to breathe easier, realizing that I didn't do anything wrong, but what they were looking for is the information about the owner. Now, it could have been getting the information so they could get the gun back to the owner, or verifying that the person who was in possession of it was the rightful owner of that weapon. And when I did ask, well, what happens, or not what happens, but what happened that this thing got triggered? And and I think I was somewhere in Maryland or wherever, West Virginia is where I was speaking to somebody. And the person on the phone said they have no idea. All they do is get a request from local law enforcement. They wanted a trace on a firearm, and that's what they started doing. Now, have there been cases of agents, and actually some relatively recently, taking pictures of somebody's book during a raid or looking at their records? Yes. Is that legal? No. Can the ATF review my records? Absolutely. That's what they're there for. And in fact, when I get inspected, they do check every record. So there is no mega database. I asked about, when somebody turns in all their paperwork, do they put that in a database? Now, the idealistic Alan is going to go and believe what I was told, which is they don't have the manpower for that. Okay. And I know a bunch of you are out there going, Alan, you're a freaking idiot if you believe that. Well, I look at it this way. They had to call me to ask who I sold the gun to. So I figure right there, if there was some super meta database, they could find all of that crap. So I guess if you're looking to avoid having multiple handgun sale forms filled out and you bought 2 pistols, pick one of them up on week 1, pick one of them up on week 2. The reality is, I have yet to see anyone of my customers have any issues with the ATF. And mostly it's because they're buying different guns. I mean, if this guy walked in and said, I need 6 Heritage Rough Riders, and I want them all in serial number order, which, I've done. If they were going to track something, that would raise their antenna up. But for somebody buying, a couple of different guns, nobody cares. Well, you might if somebody stole the gun. So I doubt I've dispelled anything for anybody, because if you believe Big Brother is got their finger into everything, then you're right. And if you believe I'm right, you're also right. Is there a middle ground? Maybe. But my paperwork is not computerized. So all of my Form 4473s stay local. In point of fact, I get offers typically 2-3 times a month from companies selling online or cloud-based documentation for the ATF, and that's not something I will ever consider doing. As far as I'm concerned, you buy something from me, that's between you and me. If the ATF steps in and they're doing something, lawfully, that's fine. But I don't consider the cloud to be safe. I don't trust other people to keep information of mine safe. So if I'm not going to trust them with my information, why should I trust them with your information? I mean, hell, even Apple got hacked in their cloud system. So, enough said about that. I look forward to questions, comments, concerns, criticism, critique, and any ideas for future podcasts that you want to hear about. So, this is Alan with Quarter Horse Arms in Snow Camp, North Carolina. You can call or text to 919-808-6480. Email info@quarterhorsearms.com, and the website is quarterhorsearms.com. And as I always say, be safe out there and have a great day.